This is a Bigfoot Books audiobook presentation of No Man Knows My History, The Life of Joseph Smith, the Mormon Prophet, 2nd edition by Fawn Brodie, originally published 1971. Bigfoot Books is owned and operated by Professor Plum 14. As an amateur, this recording was made completely free with lots of time, effort, and love. We hope that you enjoy this audiobook presentation with all of its many inevitable flaws. Please enjoy No Man Knows My History. Preface. It was in a funeral sermon that the Mormon prophet flung a challenge to his future biographers. To an audience of 10,000 in his bewitching city of Nauvoo, Joseph Smith said on April 7, 1844, "You don't know me. You never knew my heart. No man knows my history. I cannot tell it. I shall never undertake it. I don't blame anyone for not believing my history. If I had not experienced what I have, I could not have believed it myself." Since that moment of candor, at least 80 writers have taken up the gauntlet. Many have abused him, some have deified him, a few have tried their hands at clinical diagnosis. All have insisted, either directly or by implication, that they knew his story, but the results have been fantastically dissimilar. In official Mormon biographies, he has been made a prophet of greater stature than Moses. 19th century preachers have made him a lecherous rogue, and 20th century chroniclers have been bemused with what they diagnosed as paranoid delusions. The reason for these disparate opinions is by no means lack of biographical data, for Joseph Smith dared to found a new religion in the age of printing. When he said, "Thus saith the Lord," the words were copied down by secretaries and congealed forever into print. There are few men, however, who have written so much and told so little about themselves. To search in his 6-volume autobiography for the inner springs of his character is to come away baffled. The reason is partly that he dictated all of it to secretaries as the official history of his church. His story is the antithesis of a confession. Legend has it that shortly before his death he put all his private records in a great copper pot and ordered William Huntington to bury them deeper than a plow's furrow in some obscure corner of Nauvoo. But even if these should miraculously come to light, it is doubtful if they would be any more self-searching than the records already published. For Joseph Smith, like most great natural leaders, seldom wrote or spoke except with an audience in mind. This fact is what makes it so difficult to evaluate his own account of his adolescent life, which was written 2 decades afterward at the height of his career. And the later years of his journal, in which he wrote repeated denials of polygamy, are no less troublesome, for after his death 12 women proudly signed affidavits that he had taken them as wives. Wherever Joseph Smith went, he roused a storm, and from his earliest years, country newspapers gave him liberal publicity. Copies of these newspapers, some of which antedate all the early Mormon histories, have fortunately been preserved. During his short, tumultuous career, Joseph was haled into court more than 100 of times, on charges varying from disturbing the peace to treason. Many of the court records are also extant. Thus, it is not that documents are lacking, it is rather that they are fiercely contradictory and, even more important, that they are scattered from Vermont to California. The task of assembling these documents, of sifting first-hand account from third-hand plagiarism, of fitting Mormon and non-Mormon narratives into a mosaic that makes credible history, absorbing all the while the long-forgotten realities of religion and politics between 1805 and 1844, is not a dull one. It is exciting and enlightening to see a religion born, and Joseph Smith's was no mere dissenting sect. It was a real religious creation, one intended to be to Christianity as Christianity was to Judaism, that is, a reform and a consummation. But the story of Joseph Smith is more than the story of new religion. If one were unscrupulously selective in choosing details, one could make him out to be not only a prophet, but also a political menace, a dictator complete with army, propaganda ministry, and secret police who created an authoritarian dominion on the American frontier. It is easy to match his unscientific racial theories, his autocratic organization, and his boundless ambition with the theories, organizations, and ambitions of modern dictators. But to be content with drawing such parallels is to reject history for yellow journalism. It is true that Joseph Smith bucked cherished American traditions, the rigid separation of church and state, the sanctity of private property, and the inviolability of the marriage code. And it was his destruction of an opposition printing press that precipitated his lynching. But it is also true that he was purely a Yankee product, and that a great deal that was good in American folklore and thinking found its way into his writings and into his church. The cornerstone of his metaphysics was that virile concept which pervaded the whole American spirit, and which was indeed the noblest ideal of Jesus and Buddha, that man is capable of eternal progress toward perfection. But Joseph's conception of perfection was by no means exclusively spiritual. His kingdom of God upon earth was saturated with the Yankee enthusiasm for earthly blessings. No one more ingeniously than him combined Jewish and Christian mysticism with the goal of perpetual prosperity. Adam fell that men might be, he wrote, and men are that they might have joy. And for Joseph Smith, joy came, not from melancholy contemplation, but from planning bigger and better cities, building bigger and nobler temples, and creating for himself the nucleus of an American empire. The source of his power lay not in his doctrine, but in his person, and the rare quality of his genius was due not to his reason, but to his imagination. He was a myth-maker of prodigious talent, and after 100 years, the myths he created are still an energizing force in the lives of 1 million followers. The moving power of Mormonism was a fable, one that few converts stopped to question, for its meaning seemed profound and its inspiration was contagious.